Hello and welcome back to my channel. So today I wanted to talk about a movie that I went to see last Friday, and that is Supernova. Um, I wanted to talk about this movie basically because although it is a 2020 movie, a local theater here in Spain decided to do a rerun of this movie, and I am glad they did so because honestly it is a very good movie. Although, before I start talking about it, of course, I want to warn you that there will be some spoilers on the plot of the movie and also some trigger warnings because this movie discusses some sensitive themes such as mental health issues, suicide, and self harm. So, be aware before you watch this video. So, this movie is about a couple, Sam and Tusker, who are going into a road trip on their old caravan across the UK to see and visit places that they have been to when they are young, and also to visit some friends. From the get-go, we can see that there are there is some tension between Sam and Tusker, but it is still unclear why. As to there is all this kind of heavy atmosphere, although it is supposed to be a joyful journey. And so I guess the first sign that we see that Sam has, or rather I would say Tusker had some issues when it comes to the health, is when they stop to do some grocery shopping. Um, Basically, Sam gets off the van to go and get the groceries while Tusker is asleep. And when he comes back, Tusker is missing. So Sam tries to phone him, but Tusker has left the phone in the caravan, so he has absolutely no idea of where Tusker did go. Anyway, so he goes on a bit of a panic to try and find where is Tusker, and he ends up finding him on the side of a small road because they are in the countryside with their dog. And he seems like not only lost, but he seems like he's not really himself. He doesn't really understand what's happening around him. And then he gets him back to the van, to the caravan, I would say. And they get back on their trip. And this is when we learn that Tusker has been diagnosed with a early stage of dementia. And this whole trip is basically to get away from the city and the noise, and for them to enjoy a bit of, I would say, peaceful time together. So I think the reason why this movie is so interesting and impactful, first of all, is because the two actors in it have some very good chemistry together. They work well as a couple. So you don't have a moment in this whole movie where you go, oh, this is a bit weird. They really worked well together. Every scene where they have to act like a couple, it goes well. It goes very well, and it is believable, which makes this entire movie even more impactful. And I would highly recommend going into this movie with a good state of mind, to be in a happy place, definitely, because it is very heavy on the topic and the subject it is treating, but it is done in a very tasteful and beautiful way. Throughout the whole movie, there is a metaphor where, that is basically a metaphor that translates the human experience to the overall universal experience. They keep talking about the stars, about the Milky Way, and at some point, Tusker even is talking to his friend's child, and basically telling her that the Big Bang, like basically everyone is made of some fragment of a star, and therefore we are all in a way infinite. And it is, I think, a very important subject that they are touching upon in this movie, and that is the very tragic effects of dementia. And in I mean, throughout this whole movie, we can see that Tusker is having struggle to keep up and stay in control of his own body and mind. He's slowly slipping away. We can see, for example, in his diary, he's a writer and he's supposed to write one last book. But as he goes on, as the pages goes on, you can see that it goes from a clear writing to basically some scribbles that don't make any sense, and he's no longer capable of forming a full sentence in written paper. On the other hand, Sam, who is a pianist, so basically both are artists in their own right, is having trouble to accept the what's coming basically their way. He keeps saying that it doesn't matter, no matter what happens, basically, no matter how bad it gets when it comes to dementia, he will always be there for Tusker and he will take care of him. But everyone around him keeps telling him, and this is a truth, that when someone gets dementia, it gets worse and worse to the point where the person you're taking care of or you love doesn't even recognize you. And this is something that is terrifying the other partner who is Tusker, because basically he doesn't want to become an empty puppet or an empty vessel, to not be aware of who he is or where he is. So throughout the entire movie, we have some beautiful scenery and shots of different places where they go, and nature, and the different shots of nature are a mirror of what is happening to them basically on the inside, because this movie is not a road trip movie. It is more a philosophical, emotional, and psychological journey that they have to go through, both of them. Because this is not about a movie just about the person who is ill having to accept their own fate. Because we can see from the very beginning, Tusker has a clear idea of where he is heading because of this dementia. He knows what will happen and he is in peace with it. This journey is more so a journey of Sam having to accept the inevitable ending that will be happening to Tusker because of this illness. And so to go back to those sceneries, when Tusker is at the very beginning of the movie, is still in control and is not having that many difficulties to stay focused in the present and be with Sam. The scenery is very clear, very beautiful. You can see every detail. But then throughout the movie, there are some scenes where you can see, a shot from above of a forest, for example, that is covered in smog. And this ominous shot kind of mirrors or is a metaphor to Tusker slowly fading away and losing himself to the illness, which is inevitable in the end because he doesn't have control over this. And another discussion or another theme that is touched upon in this movie that is very well done is the both sides of the coin. So basically, this is about the person that is affected by the illness, having to deal with it and accept their fate. But it is also about the impact, both emotional and psychological, that it has on the people that are related or care about this person. So in this case, Tusker is going on his own journey, which we discover is totally different from what we thought at the beginning of the movie. And Sam going on a very different one, which is where he has to basically accept reality, accept the fact that Tusker is going away. The person he loves will slowly be fading away, and that at some point he needs to accept the fact that he won't be able to take care of Tusker all by himself because they are both at a very respectable age. And so Sam wouldn't be able to cope with the needs, the the health needs of Tusker. And I think this is where towards the end of the movie, so basically to fast forward, because I really don't want to speak about the movie in detail, because I think this is a movie that has to be seen and experienced, because it is a very beautiful experience. Towards the end of the movie, and this is where the big spoilers come, is that Tusker basically from the beginning had planned this trip in months in advance, because at the end of the trip he was planning on taking his own life. And this is not because he's desperate or because he's sad. It comes from a place of reason, which is something that I appreciated that they put in the movie, and they made it clear, is that Tusker is not emotional about his decision. He has made a rational decision that comes from a place of basically him wanting to keep his dignity in an illness that makes him lose control of everything. So this is basically him claiming the control back and taking matters into his own hands. The only messed up thing in this situation is that he basically didn't tell Sam that he had taken this decision. And so Sam now has to deal with the fact that he's talking from a place of selfishness, where he wants Tusker to stay, not because it is in Tusker's best interest, but because it is what suits him the best. Because he doesn't, at the end, at some point he even scream, "You can't leave me here alone." And so this is another topic that is very interesting, and this is why there is a trigger warning at the beginning of the video, which is one about the concept of assisted suicide in the healthcare system. And in this particular case, in this movie, they did it very well, in the sense that they showed us both perspectives. The perspective of the person that is taking the decision, and the perspective of the people who want to take care of the person who is ill, and maybe don't take into account what the other person is saying. Because what Tusker keeps saying is that he's not doing this because he's sad or he's desperate. No, he's doing this because he has the right to have dignity, basically, at the end of his life, and he doesn't want to lose control and become an empty body, where his mind is completely scrambled. He's no longer Tusker, he's just a body without a mind that is in control. And so what's nice is that the ending, although sad and tragic, brings attention, or brings into the table the discussion about the right of a person to basically, in case of a terminal illness or an illness that doesn't have a cure and can affect the quality of life of a person, to take control of everything and basically take the decision for themselves to terminate it on their own term and on their own conditions. And this is definitely something that is very controversial even today in 2021. And I think because this is a topic that's, when it comes, if we're going to talk about it on the basis of human rights, it falls on the limits on two different subjects. One is the right of every human being to live, and the other one being the right to dignity, basically, for every human being. So assisted suicide definitely falls in that limit between the right and the duty of any government or any society to provide security and ensure that a person is safe and alive, that their life isn't in danger. On the other hand, the right of an individual to claim their own dignity, basically. And in this movie, it is done by basically having this contrast between what Sam wants on one hand, which is to basically take care of Tusker and on the other hand, having Tusker having to explain, which is also something that is difficult, because on top of having this illness, on top of having to take this very difficult situation, he is faced with yet another obstacle, which is having to explain himself to his loved one. And he does so by basically telling Sam that this is not about him, this is not about the illness either, this is about Tusker himself. This is something that he wants to do in order to stay the same, and as he said, he wants to be remembered as the writer he was and the person he was, and not as something he will become as this illness starts to advance in his mind. So in short, I think that this movie is absolutely amazing. I really loved it. I loved the chemistry that there was between the two actors that were playing Sam and Tusker, and it is definitely something that a movie that is worthwhile to watch. But as I said, it is very important to go in prepared both emotionally and psychologically to watch something that is very loaded when it comes to the themes that it is exposing, and also very emotionally potentially damaging if you are not in a good place, I would say. So definitely go see it if your movie theater is doing a rerun of this one, because as you know, it aired when this whole situation was crazy in 2020, and every movie theater was closed. And if you don't have it in your closest movie theater, then definitely go rent it and give it a watch, because it is definitely something that a movie that touches upon subjects that are not easy to talk about, but needs to be talked about, because at the end of the day, this happens to everywhere, to basically anyone, and I think it will be a very touching movie, especially if, like me, you have seen it or seen the effect of this kind of illnesses in real life, and you know how an individual can become, very different from what they were in the beginning, before the illness starts eating their entire mind away. So yeah, definitely this is a movie I think is very good to go see and watch. It is not an easy movie to watch, but it is a very necessary one to have out there to speak about this kind of issues. So this was my video of today. I hope you liked it. And if you did, please give me a thumbs up. Also leave a comment, and if you want to see more videos, I will be doing one every week about different movies and topics. Then feel free to subscribe, and I'll see you next week. Thank you very much.